Thank you for joining me for my Soul Spark series. This is part 6 titled Soul Bridge. And I'm so excited to be able to share what I've been learning on my spiritual journey via a twin flame path. And what I've recently received through meditation has been incredibly deep and so empowering. And for me, it's been so helpful in understanding the overall journey. And apparently, from what I've read of others' experiences and from what I know of my own, it can be really, really confusing. And there is just so much misinformation and, of course, terminology, differences of opinions, and just different experiences. And it can be so overwhelming and hard to bring it all together to really understand it. So I hope that having all of this put together will be beneficial. So let me jump right in with all journeys are unique, and what I share here are simply my own beliefs. Please just take what resonates with you. References made to feminine and masculine are not related to genders, but energetic roles. Also, Relaxdaily is playing in the background his Keys and Candles episode, and I will post all links of references below. I will be getting into a lot of the why of the twin flame journey and kind of what I think is foundational or more behind the scenes, because I feel like the more we know, the more easily we will be able to move through this. Also, some of the messages I receive are not anything I've come across in mainstream twin flame community discussions and such, but as a twin flame collective, I think we're not in the early stages of understanding this journey, but I don't think we're fully in the enlightened stages either, but rather somewhere in the middle. I believe we're coming more and more into understanding, and I think we'll begin to see more divine masculines come forward and more people come into union for that reason. But please do keep in mind that union is not the goal here. If you're a twin flame, you will be guided to find your most authentic self. And everything else comes as a result of that because we are aligning with our divine design. And our twin flame is a part of that design, right? Though union isn't guaranteed, but as the design of this type of spiritual journey, I do believe it is meant for us to get to union for an even greater purpose that I believe we will also see more of as we begin ascending as a collective. I believe that it's meant to happen with the person who shares our soul, but we have to be open to being guided. And some people will say that you need to step away from the twin flame labels, and I get that. We shouldn't be focusing on that or expecting a specific outcome, but I still recognize this as what I'm experiencing. That for me is on the same page as how people like to say, this is all an illusion. And I do get it, creation through consciousness, but you know what? I'm still here experiencing this illusion. And really, this is a big part of why I'm passionate about sharing what I've been getting through my ascension, because it seems so many people completely disregard the physical aspects. I mean, that's the point of the physical. The soul, spirit is here through the soul, experiencing the physical. Like when people come at you with that whole, your twin flame was just a catalyst and union may only be spiritual, that this is a spiritual journey and nothing to do with the physical. And it is a spiritual journey, but it is happening in the 3D plane, and it's for a reason. And with what I'm going to share with you, it's going to make perfect sense. It's to bring the physical and the spiritual together. And that happens through soul alignment. I'm going to bring this up again and again, and it's actually going to pack more of a punch in a little bit. Okay, so starting out, what we're looking at is a little chart I've put together, and there are two in this video. And I'm going to try to skim through all of this, just touching briefly on the main points, but I'll come back and follow up videos to break all of this down and to get into the juicy details of each part. So we start out with source energy at the top, boundless, infinite, highest vibrational frequency. This is unconditional love from which all creation flows with polarity. Okay, so I believe spirit or God is love so pure that it shares that love through consciousness and creation. Then there's the higher soul, which many people call the higher self, but I've heard that they're interchangeable to some, I guess. But I see this I see the higher self as being more personable to only my soul, which is also my twin flame soul. It's the so-called best version, or what I like to call the aligned version, whereas the higher soul is getting the collective experiences of my soul family. So it gets the experiences of all souls in my soul family from all of their lifetimes. And there are more branches than what is shown here, but this is just what I feel is needed for what I'm getting into. And I just like having everything kind of, broken down so I can see what's what. And if you've watched some of my other videos, you already know I like to use visual aids. So within soul families are individualized fractals of the higher soul, which each individual soul has its own physical body for its own unique experience. A quick key point that I'll get deeper into in a follow-up video is that the soul, or in the soul, we have yin and yang, and as we often like to refer to them as energetic divine feminine and divine masculine energies, these are terms frequently used, but I've actually come into not agreeing with the way they're often used, because as twin flames come into soul recognition, we're not in those divine energies, but we're being called to align with them, to align with soul, because those are the polarities of the soul. But once we do start aligning, we do begin to embody those energies. In alignment, we can create with greater ease, which is manifesting. And we can do that anyway, but there's a difference between manifesting from our vibrations and manifesting through our frequency. Now, I will mention that our soul core frequency is unique and that no other body shares it except for your twin flame. So, as with anyone, you may lean more toward the feminine or yin energy, or more towards the masculine, which is the yang energy. So notice that the higher self here as being a denser creation, as in a form of a physical creation, but not as dense as the 3D. The higher self resides in a higher plane and has a sense of time, but it's not how we know it to be. So moving on to the physical in the 3D, the being that I have the being as having an ego, mind, and body emotions, including conditioned emotions, which beliefs, traumas, successes, wounds, etc. may all be a part of that, and karma from this life. So I believe the soul incarnates to share those experiences with higher soul, which I believe has to do with vibrations. And in a sense, this is spirit showing up in a body experiencing. And I think this is like knowing about something in the way you can read about something. So, so for like example, I can pull up the street view in somewhere in Italy, and I can drive by the restaurants, the hillsides. I can see the ocean view, and I can even look at, photos that people post and reviews. I can get a pretty good idea of, a lot of the details, but I can't truly understand it until I experience it for myself. And I kind of think that's why God or spirit created the soul, to be able to experience the physical manifestations of consciousness through the senses. And I think it actually goes beyond that, but that'll be for one of the detailed videos. So soul is the bridge between spirit and physical, because the 3D plane is a lower vibration from that of soul and also from that of spirit. And it's not a bad vibration, it's just a lower vibration. Soul embodies the power to manifest through its consciousness, which is its connection to the body, but also to spirit. It's what God made to connect the physical with the spiritual. This is what I said I will keep bringing up, because it's so important for understanding union and really most of this journey, if not all of it. So you see, I have the other being as having the ego, which is unique to themselves. You don't share that with your twin. You have your own conditioning, your own mind, your own body, beliefs. But in between, I did note what you do share. You share the same soul core frequency, which means you share your soul's purpose. And you may have different roles in that purpose, or even purposes, but ultimately at your core, you have the same purpose. And I've listed what your core purpose comes from, like creativity, expression, and so on. I believe there are more. Feel free to comment what you think. I think we all resonate with most of them, but I think our core purpose is one or two that really drive us when we're aligned with soul. So I threw in here other life karma, though that doesn't currently resonate with me. I don't believe we carry over karma, but I may be wrong. Honestly, I don't know that much about it because it just doesn't resonate with me. But if you believe in that, I think that's definitely something you would share with your twin. I've listed some other things, but I'll get into that in another video. And I will just touch on the energetic traits that we have in the polarity of the soul, which are the divine feminine and divine masculine energies. And it's just how we identify with one energy being what we consider to be more masculine traits or more feminine traits. Also, I want to mention that the soul is balanced. The soul is the divine energy of those traits, of the divine feminine, divine masculine energies. And those energies are always in balance in our soul. What we're being called to do is to come into balance with those divine energies, to be in alignment with our soul, is to be balanced throughout all of those energies. And that's why I've come to not referring to twins as DF or DM, because we may not be aligned with that divine energy. And that's actually what twin flames are when they come into soul recognition. We're in those wounded energies. I don't have them listed here, but I'm sure I'll get deeper into that in another video. But that's what we're being led to, getting aligned with those energies. And though I may lean more towards the feminine aspects and my twin may lean more towards the masculine, or vice versa. So on to the next page, something I've often wondered about, and I've included the usual answers, but there's a big one, probably the biggest reason. But why twin flames? And honestly, I think this is only, well, me personally, it's probably the only way I would have moved. It's the only thing that would have pushed me this far. I mean, sure, Spirit could have come up with anything, but this definitely is something that has worked for me. But if you've been on this journey for a bit, you've probably heard that twin flames usually have some big differences or, some huge blocks between them. And we're being led to overcome those. We're also told that we're supposed to raise vibrations, that's our purpose here. But I'd like to mention quickly that you may hear this brought up a lot, and I've said it plenty myself, but I didn't fully understand it like I do now, which is, yes, we are raising vibrations within our day-to-day, but that's different from aligning with our soul frequency. Also, I don't think most of us are meant to get to a frequency such as that of Spirit, of that unconditional love, at least the way most of society defines that, because I think that's difficult to maintain that as a human. I think we can get there, but not stay there for many of us, and that's okay. I think we're meant to simply align with our soul's core frequency, but I'm going to come back to that, to what I believe unconditional love means. So back to why twin flames. It's definitely another unique experience for our soul. And I'm going to skip past some of this for now, but one of the biggest reasons I believe our soul incarnates into two bodies is because of that pure love I mentioned that comes from Spirit, from God. So a few weeks ago, when it was still really warm out, I was driving one afternoon. I had the windows down. My hands are out in the air, feeling the wind, and the warm breeze was blowing through my hair. And there was a really good song playing, and I was singing and smiling, and I just felt so good. And I remember thinking how thankful I was to be able to feel this way, to have come to this in such a profound way. And it was more than just a good feeling. It was soul alignment, being at your design frequency where you have peace and joy and love. And I thought, this is what I want to share with my twin flame, this feeling. And it wasn't anything needy or out of a physical desire. It was what I believed to be the unconditional love we're supposed to come into, just to want to share it without any expectations whatsoever. So later, when I was meditating that night, it came to me again, and I realized this is why Spirit wants to share love, because it's love so pure, no conditions, and the soul, by incarnating into two bodies, can love another who is physically so far outside of their conditioning, but who shares their soul core frequency. And in this, we learn that we can love someone who we were conditioned against. But then the real magic occurs and we come to love ourselves. And at first, that may not seem like a big deal, but when you really start getting into that, you get blown away. And I think that's the ultimate love alongside of loving God, because that's exactly what this is. It's spiritual love. And we don't recognize this at first. We mistake it for emotional love. But we don't understand why we feel this way for this other person, because we didn't do anything to get to that point with them, to develop it. And we may even think it's just, crazy infatuation, or maybe it was just the sex. But so, yeah, I think the love is so pure, it must be shared. And it doesn't have to be with just twin flames. That's just one way of coming into this. But to me, it's the most defining part of this journey when you realize just how amazing that truly is. So, back to the soul bridge, being the link between body and spirit. It's what I was saying many disregard, and I'm very passionate about this. I have never heard anyone else talk about this, and I really hope that people get this, because I think it's so inspiring, and I believe it brings truth to where there's just so much misinformation. But I've come across a lot of people saying that this is a spiritual journey, that it has nothing to do with your twin flame or the physical plane, which if you're the feminine intern, the one who is the more spiritual twin, then you represent the spiritual side of this journey, whereas the masculine intern represents the physical side. And I say masculine or feminine intern, or MI or FI, because as I mentioned earlier, I don't like using the terms DF or DM. Some people say spiritual twin or matrix twin, but those are a little limiting too. I just say MI or FI because they're a broader representation of the twins who may or may not be aligned, may or may not be awakened, and they can just represent each at any stage of the journey. But because the MI is linked to the physical and the FI to the spiritual, being in soul alignment means bringing physical and spiritual together. So next, there's awakening, and it can be different for everyone. For me, I think it began about 9 years ago. My life went through a complete deconstruction. My job, home, relationships, my religious beliefs. I didn't even believe in God for a while. I thought I was depressed, and everything seemed out of my control, like how I saw myself changed. And I think this was the first dark night of the soul for me, and I think you can have more than one round of that. Many people may experience some or all of this before or after meeting their twin flame. And some people have been married for a long time, and some people may have been in just, very codependent relationships. For me, I went through, so I was very independent. I just could never take anything from anyone. If I did, I made it a point to return something. I didn't know how to ask for help. And I pretty much tried to never be in a place to need to ask for help. But when I was going through that deconstruction, I was forced to ask for help. I was forced to rely on others. And more than anything, I got humbled. But then after I started coming out of that and rebuilding my life and feeling like I was moving in a good direction, here comes my twin flame. So then there was soul recognition, and this is when we experience that spiritual love, which we likely don't understand. So we don't recognize this for the gift it is, and we actually probably eventually mistake it for emotional love, where we end up losing ourselves in that because we're not aligned with our soul. And, after you accept this, that this isn't going away, and you've probably learned about twin flames at that point, and maybe accepted that that's what you're going through, and you probably learned this is actually not about that other person, but a spiritual journey. And some would have you believe, as I mentioned, that it's not about that other person at all. I don't agree. I mean, why are they experiencing the intensity of the connection? Why do they have the obsessive thinking too? Why are they led to make changes? Because they are a part of this just as much as you are. It's just different for their side of things. they have to be aligned as well to come into union with their soul, which you share. That spark of soul in your heart, which is in their heart, is bringing you both to your shared soul. Why would it be soul alignment with only one body coming home? So then there may be a brief period of contact, which feels like an adrenaline rush, and then some. There's awakening for what I believe to be both twins, but ascension may not occur for the MI yet. Even for the FI, it may take a little bit. Like for me, getting out of the obsessive thinking. Once I did that, I moved into meditation, and I still had some obsessive behaviors because I went from one thing to another, but it became less and less until I just got out of that energy altogether. So once we have soul recognition, our soul becomes activated, which triggers fear-based energy to surface. And that's what kicks off the runner-chaser energy. Whether you put that into action directly or not doesn't matter. The energy is super intense at this stage, and it feels explosive. So no one is to blame here. You both are simply reacting to the confusion of the spiritual love I mentioned, which I got that from Elkhart Tolle, where he discusses that along with emotional love, and I'll link that below. And it's just overwhelming to the FI, who usually starts off as a chaser, though that can change quickly. They feel the intensity, and all they know is that they want to be with this person. They can quickly overlook the differences. They figure they can work through whatever obstacles there are without truly thinking about how their lives would be affected. So the MI feels the intensity, and in the design of that role, they run because what they feel doesn't make sense. It doesn't fit into their world or their lifestyle, and they have a strong desire to be with the FI, maybe even commit to them, because they feel that spiritual love and probably mistake it for, like what I was saying earlier, great sex or just an infatuation. Even if they admit to themselves or even their counterpart as being the emotional love, they can't understand why. And also, they probably tell themselves that it'll pass. So they have to get away from it. Whatever they have to do to resist, to forget, deny, even though that might be hard to do at times. And maybe they come back in, or maybe they're in and out for a bit, but eventually comes separation. You have the dark night of the soul, or ego death, which for me was a second round after I met my twin, but it wasn't as drawn out as the first time. It was intense, but I didn't experience depression the second time because I had already been through the whole deconstruction. I was getting into rebuilding my life, but we have the obsessive thinking. And I want to say that depending on how deep in the matrix the MI is, they go through this too, but they may be able to distract themselves a little more easily. Like the deeper they are in the matrix, the easier that is for them to do. And they're aware of a special connection. Like they had that at soul recognition too, but just like the feminine intern, they didn't know what it was. But unlike the feminine intern, they don't go looking for info on it. Not just yet, most likely. So they're able to basically put this off for a bit. But the thinking is there. They have the jabbing thoughts as well. But if they have distractions, they're not lost in them like the FI gets. The feminine asks all the questions, analyzing every single aspect, every word, every text, every action. And I'm sure the masculine gets tempted to do that because the thoughts are there, but it's just easier for them to not give in. And again, that depends on how deep in the matrix they are, the importance of all that to them. So we start getting signs and synchronicities, dreams, maybe astral experiences, and surrendering is happening. And I believe surrender is not a stage, but something that happens through this entire journey. Like how I finally accepted that this whole twin flame thing is what I was experiencing. Then I accepted it as a spiritual journey. Then I came into trusting the divine plan of it all. And it's just a step by step, more and more we come into that surrender. And there have been a lot of things in surrendering. So then we come into introspection. We learn that this is about self-love. And I think a big key point is meditation. And that's likely for any spiritual journey because Yeah, it does have a lot of benefits to your health, your mind, body, and emotions. But the biggest reason I think is because it opens you to receive your own tailored spiritual guidance, which is unique to your journey. This is why when we keep looking outside of ourselves for information, trying to figure out what's going on or just get some sort of just peace through this, we keep getting led to look inward because all of the answers you need will be found there. I mean, you can get info from the outside, but what you truly need is going to be found within. And I feel like I've gotten stuff I didn't get elsewhere, but also I just came in a better understanding of certain things through meditation, like where I thought I understood something, but through that meditation, I became more enlightened. Like one thing I'll share real quick was right after I started trying to meditate, I heard that gentle voice that I've now come to accept as my spiritual guidance telling me, "You are a powerful meditator. He is a powerful manifester." And I didn't think too much on it then. I took that. I was like, okay, whatever. I'm thinking, why does he get to manifest shit? And I'm over here with meditation. But I had no idea at the time of what was to come. But I can look back now and I see the meditator is of the spiritual side and the manifester is of the physical side. And they both are equally powerful. And that comes back to that soul bridge. The body and spirit link together through soul. You have the physical and the spiritual come together when aligned with soul. And one day I was in meditation and that voice came to me and it started the same way, telling me, "You are a powerful meditator. You are a powerful manifester." And I'm like, that's new. And then it sunk in. So I've felt like I've come into alignment for the past few months now. So I embody the physical with the spiritual. I'm getting in balance with my divine feminine and divine masculine energies, yin and yang. Not perfectly. I think spirit is guiding me to where I need to be, but I have seen the changes in myself, and so have others. And I also realized that I have been manifesting things more easily lately, not even really intentionally. So, here I want to mention that on this journey, the only thing we need to be focused on is soul alignment, which comes through self love. Everything else you need to do will come through that, and you don't have to figure it out, contrary to what you may hear in a lot of places, like certain exercises and clearings. Just align with your soul through self love. But through this, you'll begin to align with your soul's core frequency. And you'll raise vibrations day to day that may fluctuate up and down. That's not as important. And I'll get into that in another video. But you'll begin to heal where you need to. You may be guided to set boundaries for yourself, and you'll experience grace, peace, and love for yourself and for others. And that's where that spiritual love comes in, where you can look past the personality of others and love them for who they are and their soul. And it's a beautiful thing. I believe this is the unconditional love we're meant to come into. And I keep saying that because it seemed impossible for a while because I kept trying to figure out how was I going to love the human race unconditionally. That's an incredibly high vibration to keep in, and I don't think most are designed to cope with that. Maybe if it's your soul purpose, then you would be guided in such a way that you would be able to do that and in a way that your body would eventually be able to sustain that. And maybe as we move into the new earth that's, the hot topic right now, we will get into that one day. So back to the chart. We come into soul alignment. We learn about being in the now, and we start manifesting more easily. And by now, you absolutely know that everything about this journey brings it back to you. Ultimately, knowing that all we need is found by looking inward. And now we can experience emotional love without losing ourselves. So when we do come to a reunion or a union with our twin, you both are able to balance the energy between you. Like both are no longer triggered by that fear. And in this moment, after we've dropped all of the conditions, we see them at their core, which is also seeing ourselves. And for them, it is seeing themselves in us. In alignment, when we think of our twin flame, we are no longer in that push pull energy. We can actually manifest reunions or even union, depending on where you are with all of this. But I know some people say you can't think of them, you have to let go of them completely. And I do think you have to trust in divine plan. You have to let go of your ideas of an outcome. That is a big part of surrendering. But I think when you're aligned with your soul, I think you don't have to walk on eggshells with everything to do with them because you're maintaining balance. You share that energetic field, which means they're coming into balance too. And they may not even know what this whole twin flame thing is. They may never know, but they will know they have a special connection with the feminine, who can now officially be called the divine feminine because alignment is occurring for both. The physical bodies are drawn in, magnetized in, and I believe we can then choose to develop that emotional love with them. And I think the desires are allowed to flow freely because in alignment, we're in those divine energies. But that's for a follow-up video, so I'm going to end it here. Please subscribe if you're interested in the more in-depth breakdown of all of this with what I hope will be more helpful info, but I will try to keep each video short. Please feel free to comment below, and thank you for joining me for Soul Spark.